Okay, so the next topic before we get into too much else with functions is we need to talk about something called scope. And so scope is how we deal with variables and how variables can be called in different places throughout code. Okay? So I'm going to do some examples now, and just this is kind of like an FYI kind of thing as opposed to a follow along. So just let's watch. Let's go ahead and make a new file, and we're going to do we're going to call it scope.php. All right. So first thing is set up our page. I'm sure I could write a little script that, makes that so much easier every time. All right, so I'm going to set a variable. I'm going to call it username, and we're going to have it equal to Teddy. All right. Now, if I use echo username, right? Okay, and then I save this, and I run it. I click on localhost 5, pick scope. It says Teddy. All right, now let's talk about something else. Let's go ahead and talk about a function. So if we have a function, right, and we're going to call it all lowercase, we can pass it, as I said in a previous video, we can pass it a variable. Word to lowercase. If I go ahead and I put in here something to the effect of return value equals word to lowercase, and of course we have to do str string to lower. Man, I keep trying to use my Mac commands. It's such a pain in the butt. Okay, string to lower, and then we can echo return value. All right. If I were to save this, and now let's call it all lowercase, word to lowercase. We'll do cheesy poofs. It's late in the day. And I go ahead and I run it. Teddy Chezzy poofs. They're Chezzy poofs, everyone. Cheesy poofs. Okay. Save it. Run it. Cheesy poofs, all lowercase. Okay, cool. All right, why does any of this really matter? And that's because that's an extra one. Because what if I did this, though? Echo return value. What if I move echo username? What if I actually wanted to echo username dot loves and whatever you put in there? First of all, you'll notice that this is highlighted. It says username, and it says undefined variable username. And you have to think to yourself, what do you mean undefined variable? There it is right there. And that is what I would think. In fact, I made a whole video where I thought that. But no, that is not true. Instead, what it is that this username is not accessible to, this username up here is not accessible to within a function because of what's called the scope. Similarly, if I were to do echo return value, right? Because there's return value, and I've defined it. Return value. I'd be curious to see if this is going to work. Part of me thinks it won't. I'm going to put this code in front of it first. See if this works first. SETI, right? So I view the page source. I'm echoing the return value. When we define it, nothing happens. It's not there because it doesn't exist. And if I try and run this one, I'll probably actually get an execution error. Let's refresh. Echo, Teddy loves cheesy poofs. So that is interesting and not what I thought, but importantly, I was able to, that's interesting because this shouldn't work. We're getting an error there, but it is working. All right, that's fun. I wonder if I did this first. One more time. Okay. Even though we've defined Teddy before we call the function, it doesn't see it because of the scope. All right? So as such, we know that we can't just take values from outside of the function, and we can't just set values in the same way. So let's show how to fix this. I can use a word called global. Global username. Now, if I'm correct, and I hit refresh, Teddy loves cheese poofs. Why does this work now? This works because when you call the function, the first thing the function does is it looks for a variable outside of its scope and says, is there one called username? If there is, I'm going to put it together in this statement. And since even though the function is up here, it doesn't get called to here, this all works. Whereas if I don't have global at the beginning, and I run it, it doesn't work because it gets to this point and it says, username, what's that? And this can also work in reverse in a bad way. Like you could, be trying to use username here, but you've set username up here and in a different context. So you have to be really careful with scope. So scope is something that can trip people up as they're especially working with functions as they go. And that's something you've had to deal with yet within PHP.